Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next installment of our Local Search Expert series. And today's topic is the impact of AI on SEO. My name is Justin Meredith, a digital marketing specialist here at Birdeye, and I'll be your moderator. We have a really great topic planned for you guys today with an amazing panel of guests. And before I introduce them, let's quickly go over some quick housekeeping, and I'll show you guys around the dashboard that you're watching this on right now. So the dashboard is full of really cool tools and windows that you can use to get the most out of today's discussion. You can move these around, resize them, and even minimize the ones that you don't want to see and just focus on the slides in the media player if you like. I highly recommend going over to the related content window up there on the top right. We've got some really awesome content and helpful additional resources for you that goes along with today's discussion to help further your learning. You'll also have the chance to ask our panel any questions you might have. And to do that, remember to use the question box and not the attendee chat. The attendee chat, we might miss it. The question box, it gives us a nice big red notification so we know not to forget that one. So be sure to send your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to those at the end of the session. If we have time, we're going to try to get through as many of those as possible. If you cannot stay for the whole time, don't worry, because we will be sending a link out tomorrow with a link to the recording. So now that that's out of the way, let me introduce to you today's guest panel. And up first, we have Ben Fisher. Ben is a Google Business Profile Diamond Product Expert, a Moz Local Ranking Factor contributor, and the co-founder of Steady Demand, which works with agencies and businesses to implement SEO, local SEO services and develop content for local SEO and social media. Welcome, Ben. A pleasure to have you on. I'm sure there's a lot more on that bio that I could have included, but I just wanted to give a quick little snippet.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Yeah, awesome. Well, up next, we have Steve Wiedemann. Steve has over 20 years of experience in SEO. He is the founder of Wiedemann Consulting Group and has worked with various Fortune 500 companies such as Applebee's, IHOP, Blaze Pizza, Skechers, Meineke, and Disney, and a whole lot of other companies as well. And he's been featured in various publications such as Forbes, Entrepreneur, and the Search Engine Journal. Steve, it's great to see you again. Welcome back to the Local Search Expert Series.
Justin, thanks for having me, and thanks for this great polo shirt too. It's kind of funny. You should have worn me though. I walked into Best Buy and the manager was like, "Hey, you're late for work." But the good news is I got the keyboard I needed and a 20% employee discount. So
nice. That's the way to do it. And now, last but definitely not least, we have Lily Ray. She was named the #1 most influential SEO expert in 2022 by USA Today. Lily currently serves as the Senior Director of SEO and Head of Organic Research at Amsiv Digital, where she currently leads an award-winning 35-plus person SEO team. Welcome, Lily. Thank you. This is your very first time on the show. We're really happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So today we are going to dive into artificial intelligence and search engine optimization. We're going to discuss the role that AI has in online search and how that's going to potentially impact your SEO efforts. Then we're going to cover what you should do and how you should move forward in this new era that we're in. And we're going to jump into a lot more than that as well. So let's go ahead and get started. And to kind of set the scene, for the last 6 months since the launch of ChatGPT earlier in late November, the topic of AI-generated content has taken the world by storm. We're seeing people find ways to use AI tools to create incredible content. They're being more productive and solving complex problems. But with all of that, those amazing possibilities, things are moving extremely fast. And that means it's really important to tread carefully and to make informed and calculated decisions when considering using AI-generated content, especially as it relates to SEO. And so, Ben, Lily, and Steve, let's start there. And so what, in your opinion, are the most significant advantages and disadvantages of using AI-generated content overall?
who wants to go first?
Yeah, really. Who wants to go first? Lily?
Sure, I'll jump in.
Lily, this is your first time here, so you can take the first question.
Love it. Yeah, why not? So there's all kinds of advantages. Obviously, this, ChatGPT and these other tools are giving us so many new possibilities in terms of not only creating content, but ideating, strategizing, developing plans for things, editorial plans, for example. But I think the best use case and the biggest pros that we're experiencing on my team is really like taking existing content or language and doing things with it, like summarizing it, creating FAQs, improving the grammar, asking it to like find opportunities in the content, or doing like content gaps between different pieces of content. So there's a lot of pros there, and it definitely speeds up our workflow quite a bit. But I would say the disadvantages are that if you're using it to just create content without a lot of oversight, there's absolutely potential for it to get things wrong. And you really have to be careful about information accuracy. So that's the biggest con I've seen so far.
Yeah, I have to agree with all of that, actually, and the biggest con to anything that's AI generated is that it's a computer, right? At the end of the day, it's a large language model based on data points. It has no empathy, it has no emotion, it has no creativity. And this is where the human element really comes in. And if we look at like the pros, I mean, the pros, as Lily was saying, is anything that has to do with research. I mean, when it comes to content, it's like, okay, creating an outline, coming up with titles, coming up with FAQs, adding in content. One of the things that I'm a fan of is you write a 600-word article and then you say, okay, what did I miss? Add some content to this or mix my content. But at the end of the day, you still need to edit it, and you need to also fact check it. Hallucinations are still a thing. I think they're going to be a thing for quite a while. And, that's when AI chat just basically comes up with ideas on its own that is not based in any kind of reality. And I think the biggest con that we really need to look at for the future here is what happens if all of the content that gets created is all AI generated. We come into a kind of garbage in, garbage out type of scenario because it is trained on data that's on the web. If everything is AI created, then it's just going to be AI content spitting out AI generators spitting out AI content. So I think that's one of the big things that we need to watch out here for the future.
I'm super excited about what we can be doing from a strategy standpoint using AI, creating keyword clusters and extracting entities and using all these great tools to speed up the process to create the different pieces of an SEO audit, from technical SEO to competitive analysis to link audit and strategy to the content siloing and taxonomy. I think I'm super excited with Bard now being public and us being able to have it access Google Sheets here pretty soon. We can take all that great data and create a content roadmap for the next 5 years in minutes, in what used to take us, weeks of filtering and sorting and organizing. So I'm very excited about streamlining a lot of that process. Still educating clients and evangelizing for these things is going to be an ongoing challenge, as it always is, but at least the audit and strategy piece of it can be more affordable now to our clients, and we can do a lot more of them expeditiously. So that's going to be exciting. On the con side of it, I agree with Ben and Lily. I think there's got to be this element of what makes me original compared to the competition, who are just throwing up ChatGPT and Bard or being content on their webpage. Are we putting local images and video and audio and examples of what we do on the page? Are we using social proof and putting in data reviews and so forth? I think that's going to be the con, is that it's too tempting just to take that content roadmap that you build and just have it automate 2 million pages and publish it in a few seconds, thinking that's going to help your SEO. And ultimately, people are going to know that's not original, and it's not going to have that character or personality that Ben had mentioned.
Awesome. And we are going to dig in a little bit more, Steve, on the back end side and how we can use AI to help your SEO efforts outside of just the content. And I saw we just got a question asking about y'all's takeaways from the Google I/O event, and we are going to dig into that later on in the discussion. So don't go away. We are going to touch on that. Now, with people being able to produce so much more content, how does using AI-generated content impact your search ranking, or how will it impact your search ranking from what you can see? And Steve, you can go ahead and take this one, and we'll just, yeah.
I was gonna say, I saw in their guidelines that they're pretty strict on using automation at scale. So I think that's probably the key takeaway there is look, if you're just going to use it to try to scale content and not, put your brand voice on that content, that there could be potential penalties involved. But then they also put a post out that says we're not against AI content, and AI content can be very helpful. So I think there's ways that we can extrapolate it, especially for local businesses. We could ask AI to pull 60 to 100 local data fields, like how far from the nearest freeway, how far from the nearest park or stadium, right? So we can wordsmith some things into content based on that data that it can pull, that content that it can pull for us, and then use that, put our own voice on it, and scale our multi-location franchise SEO. I think that's that's one way I think we can take advantage of the content from an AI standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I always come back to the simplest of concepts when it comes to this, and that is that Google sees content as content. It really doesn't discriminate much, right? I mean, of course, there are all the EAT principles, which I'm sure Lily's going to probably get into, but as far as being able to tell 100% whether something is AI or partially AI or human driven, I think it's going to be hard. But as you're saying, there's this danger out there. We know all the lazy marketers and the people who try to game and spam the system. It's going to happen. PBNs are going to pop up all over the place. Content farms are going to easily be created. People are just going to be buying domain names and throwing up junk content. As a matter of fact, I think one was just nailed that has had 700 sites, I think was something like that associated with it. And it was all AI content. And that leads to another thing is that, okay, so we were kind of talking about this in the green room, is since Google is basically stated that they're going to, at I/O, that they're going to have somehow give a bump or maybe give some more credit to original content generation, I guess. What does that mean? How are they going to do that? And what's that going to mean for us as SEOs? I personally predict they're going to come out with a tag that's kind of like the rel equals author or rel equals no follow. And it's going to designate whether it's AI, partial AI, or human content generation. And then they're going to use the machine learning to learn based off of that. So anyway, I guess to wrap all that up into a nice little package, I think that there's going to be a lot of spam, but I think there's going to be a lot of reward for unique content. What do you think, Lily?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of you for sure. It's definitely an interesting and unique situation, given that Google obviously is also enabling, the generation of AI content with things like Bard, and now its new features in Google Workspace. And they've, Steve mentioned that they actually put out guidelines, I think it was December or January, where they said, this is how we actually feel about AI content. You're allowed to use it, but you can't misuse it. You can't mass auto-generate content. And you always have to think about EEAT. They also encourage site owners to label AI content accordingly and to also include author names for only humans and not AI. So they're kind of like cornering people a little bit, but I think that there's plenty of use cases for AI content that are fine and not dangerous and not really problematic for clients. For example, product descriptions on an e-commerce site, especially if you're feeding it relevant information about your products and it generates a few sentences, that's fine. But what I do think is going to happen, and we're already seeing it happen. There's already people large scale creating sites that are entirely built with ChatGPT and everything. Even if it's working right now, I don't believe it will work forever. Google has to catch up algorithmically. It's probably going to launch some new updates. They just mentioned yesterday there's going to be a new rendition of the helpful content update. So I think that they will get ahead of mass AI content generation. And even if they can't technically detect everything, they have a lot of other signals that they can use to identify what's high quality content. So if users really truly love AI generated content, then it's probably fine. But I have a feeling users are going to skew towards actual authentic, original human created content.
Yeah, I have something I'd add to that too. And Jim Rohn had a quote back in the day where he said, you don't have to do extraordinary things to be successful. You only have to do ordinary things extraordinarily well. As you think about your content and you compare it to the results that already appear in the search results, kind of have that mindset of, hey, I just need to do ordinary things. I need to write a great page that addresses all the different needs that my customer has and personalize it. Maybe even just make sure every page has a video, with some stakeholder of the group, of the company, saying, hi, this is, Elon Musk, welcome to our such and such page. Let me talk about a little bit of our product and who we are and why you should buy from us. Give some authenticity to it, not just text and bullet points and headings and subheadings that are shoved with keywords.
Interesting. So as it relates to AI generated content, how would you advise businesses to approach using it? Whether it be, sparingly, just kind of like, what would you guys advise businesses to do as they move forward with this?
No, I guess I can
Ben,
start.
let's start with you.
Sure. So a couple bullet points, then breakdown, right? So number one is use it as a tool. We kind of went over in the beginning a little bit about what it's good for, and it's good as really great as an assistant, improving workflows and just making things so much faster internally for processes. But also, you need to make a decision. We made this decision actually very early on, which we might change. And that is at our company, we are not going to use AI generated content for anything that is what we consider to be forward facing public. So for instance, we won't write an entire article, out of it. As a matter of fact, we probably won't even write half of an article with it. We want our content to be genuinely created by writers for our clients. And we want to give that, and like, we won't even use it for like a Google post, for instance. Now, will we use it for like a description, or a Q&A or a FAQ? Yeah, we'll probably do that. But nothing that's going to be something as important as like cornerstone content. As far as how businesses should take the approach to using it, I guess you have to just take a look at that from a small and a medium and a large enterprise type of look. And I think it comes down to budget and the care of the quality. And small businesses, I feel, are going to take the lazier approach, because historically they always have. They don't really have the big budget. They're focused on, working in the business. So they're most likely going to most likely create content with AI, maybe check it a little bit for accuracy and then let it go. It's going to save them time and it's going to save them money, which is really kind of what they need. And I'm not saying I encourage this, but I think that is what's going to happen. I think the medium and the large businesses, however, they take a lot more care in their marketing. So they're going to find ways, again, to have efficiencies, like Lily was saying, with the writing of product descriptions. That's an excellent example of something that's actually really, really needed in the SEO world. So I think they're going to take a little bit more care. They're not going to care about saving a couple bucks, but they are going to look at how it can make them probably more efficient.
Ben, we just had another question that I wanted to throw in there just because it relates so well to what we're talking about right now. How do you feel about it just improving your original content?
I think it's great. I actually have a habit on that one myself personally. We don't do it at the company, but personally I do it. And that is that, you can write a killer prompt to go ahead and train, most of the systems on your writing style, right? So you could do that first. And then the second thing you can do is say, okay, well, here's, just take like 600 words of content. And then you could either do what I call a mix, or you could do an addition. And so a mix is just, okay, that's great. Add 800 words to this. And then it'll do it. Or you can have it add. And then you can say, okay, after this line, give me 2 paragraphs, of 800 words of new content, which is complementary to the content that I just showed you. And it'll do that. And it'll do it fine.
I like, oh, sorry, go ahead, man.
No, that's it. I'm done. Go for it.
Yeah, so we're using a workspace extension for Google Sheets called ChatGPT for Sheets, and I love it with a little bit of formulas and goofing around with it. You can have it extract entities and topics and subtopics that help understand the intent of the user from pages that already appear in search results. And then you can augment your content based on what those intents and topics and subtopics are. So it's a great way to sort of say, hey, I'm not going to just write my own content and hope that Google ranks me. It's going to be, I'm going to have AI study the results that already appear on page 1 of Google. And then all of those different words, keywords, entities, topics, subtopics that are used on those top ranking pages, figure out a way that I can incorporate those into my outline, and then I'm going to write my own content based on those topics. I think it's a neat way to to kind of get started a little bit with how you improve a single page of content. The other way that you could use AI to improve an existing page, is really, like you'd mentioned, just adding all the different elements of the page. What are questions people have? One little thing that we did that was kind of interesting is we copied every single business review that we had for a business, and then we put them all into ChatGPT, and we said, basically, write us a page of content based on feedback from our customers, so that we're saying back to them what they already like about us. And then we took that and we can draw inspiration from it to create our own content. So that way we're just taking what they already say about us, and we're writing content that that says that. So if they really love the fries at this restaurant, you're saying we're really well known for our fries, right? And little things like that. So that way you're talking to your audience based on how they're talking about you. And that's a really neat way to approach single page optimization. One, getting the right entities and intents, and then two is writing and rewriting your content based on what people already say about you.
So Nate obviously is probably listening to this, and he probably just wrote down your idea, and we're going to see a feature in Birdeye very shortly.
Yeah, I love what both you guys are saying, because I think the really important main takeaway that my team and I have had over the past several months is the best way to use ChatGPT in our experience is, again, like you guys are saying, to feed it existing information and have it do something with it, as opposed to just creating something from scratch. So taking, let's say, your company's About Us page content, running it through there and saying, how can we further depict that we're this type of agency, or whatever it is that you want to achieve. ChatGPT can help you kind of modify the content. So I think running content through there and asking it to do very specific things is probably the best way that we're using it, because then there's less room for error in terms of what it gives back, because it's just working with a block of text that you've already confirmed is good text. The one thing I will say that's really important for everybody to understand is just because it gave you an answer doesn't mean that it's actually doing anything scientific or accurate. You know what I mean? Sometimes you say, for example, with Steve, entity extraction, it's not doing it the way that Google's NLP tools do entity extraction. It's just guessing based on what whatever word it's seeing. You know what I mean? So you can put a bunch of titles or something and say, what is this about? And it'll just guess. It's never going to say, I don't actually know. That's my problem with ChatGPT, is it never tells you I'm not very confident about my answer. It just confidently answers everything. So you really have to have that level of scrutiny with its answers across the board.
Yeah,
you need a confidence score in there.
Well, but Lily brought up a really good point here. Somebody in a Slack channel was saying, "Oh my God, SEO, local SEO is dead." AirPRM just put out this GMB or GBP optimization tool, right? So I went over and I popped it in, and I'm like, all right, so it's asking me for the name of my business, where it's located, and my keyword. Fine, whatever. Let's see what it generates. And I did it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh, these results are junk. For somebody who doesn't know any better, they're probably going to look at it and go, oh my God, this is amazing. But kind of to Lily's point, it's guessing. And when you really scrutinize the data, it's, for the most part, it is wrong. It's good enough, again, for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. But for somebody who knows what they're doing, you can almost instantly tell, oh, great, I got to do more work for this.
I think digital marketers, our credo is test, right? Just keep testing everything and exploring. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's a great segue, Steve, and for my next question, which is what you were talking about earlier, and maybe not so much the content side or the front-facing side like you were talking about, Ben, but what about how do you add AI how do you use AI to add value to your SEO strategy? And this could be more so from the backside of things.
Yeah, for sure. I love this one because we've been, I think I've mentioned it pretty much on every webinar we've done about focusing around 4 key areas for local SEO in particular. Our data accuracy, our location pages and intent subpages, our data visibility on the web, as well as our reputation. So my thinking is, as we start to explore ways that we can leverage these large language models and improve our business using them, start by making sure AI is part of the verification process for your business data, making sure your business data is complete and accurate across the web, figuring out ways that you can apply AI into improving the helpfulness and the expertise, experience, authority, trust signals that Lily knows so much about. You definitely got to follow her stuff. She's amazing. Perhaps even rotating images and videos to boost your page experience and page performance. Using AI to improve business data visibility. Perhaps you can ask AI, hey, find me local business directories I should be listed in. Oh, and send me new ideas every week. Right. So we're thinking about patterns and not just set it, forget it. Improving or using AI to improve your reputation online. This could be rotating questions that you're asking when you're doing your first party native reviews so that you get different types of answers with different keywords that are used and different adjectives to describe your products and services. And, helping to identify what might be fake reviews that are being left so that you can flag them or work with people like Ben to get them flagged and removed. So I think using AI in all 4 of those areas and figuring out ways to do that, maybe even asking AI to help you figure out ways that you can improve your data accuracy, your local page experience and subpages, your data visibility, and your reputation every month can be a way to really amplify what you're doing in local search.
Can I ask you a question there, Steve?
Yeah.
Because again, we're talking about data accuracy, but we're also talking about a large language model versus a generative AI, right?
Yeah.
And we're also talking about systems that really cannot scrape the web very good yet, right? So like ChatGPT, unless you got access to the plugins, which like only 5 people in the world do, you can't scrape the web. Bing, horrible at its own data, right? It's getting better. I mean, actually, local results actually line up now, which is amazing. And as far as Bard goes, it's like I have yet to see anything accurate come out of Bard. Putting a URL in and saying analyze this page or what's in this page, or I haven't seen it very well done. So when you bring up things like using it to improve accuracy and say get new citation ideas, every time that at least that I have done this, it's always come back with general, it's basically what other people have regurgitated a million times. Go get local, go get Chamber of Commerce, blah, blah, blah. So I'm very curious to hear about how you are actually using that to generate something that's extremely useful.
Right now, we're just kind of putting together what we want to build. And then when the extensions now are going to be available for Bard, we're going to start trying to build things that allow us to do those things. Right now, we're just planning on how we'd like to use these different tools.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I was because
it sounded like you're already doing it. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute,
not yet.
That's gold.
Not yet, but we're definitely thinking about ways that we want to be using it, and hopefully we'll be developing some ways to actually make that happen. So we'll see.
On. Cool. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. Planning ahead, right? Planning ahead.
Heck yeah.
Awesome. Now, looking ahead, and let's see, let's just kind of, examine what do you guys foresee happening when it comes to online search. And so for this first question, Ben and Steve, this one's for you, and then I've got one for you a little bit down the line, Lily. So Ben and Steve, do you think search engines will continue to focus on local business relevance, distance, and prominence? Or based on what we saw yesterday at Google's I.O., was there anything that made you think differently? How do you see these ranking factors being impacted?
I actually asked Bard this morning. I said, based on yesterday's Google I.O., how do we see the changes to web search affecting local keyword rankings? And of course, it immediately jumped into distance and prominence. I thought that was kind of interesting, but I think it's so new, and we just have to watch, monitor, see who shows up, see what what we can reverse engineer about the sites that do show up, and then study those patterns. Lily does this better than anybody. I love the Systrix stuff that you do, where I can actually see who are the top winners and who are the top losers, because then we can go in and reverse engineer them, whether you're using a Google Sheet and creating columns for each attribute, off page and on page and schema and everything else, or if you're using something a little bit more robust. I think doing that reverse engineering of what appears in the search results is going to be the best way for us to understand what we need to be doing to improve our rankings.
Yeah, I totally agree with Steve. I mean, that's something as SEOs that we always have to be doing, which is analysis and looking for that. And I think that there is going to end up being a new job title, and that's going to be an AI SEO expert who trains models on how to rank the best entity. I think that's ultimately we're going to have a position for that. But if we take a look at the local algorithm and how it works, there's the organic side, which impacts local, of course. But distance and prominence, those are two key factors that you really can't game. You can't game the distance of a searcher from your business. Prominence also has to do with a lot of local factors, like an HVAC company having, a van that goes into a certain area, right? Or is using billboards or radio advertising, things like that. Relevance, however, I think relevance can be absolutely impacted when it comes to what we're going to see. And, I know we're going to be talking about this, but I love the fact that local results are going to be coming into Bard, basically, or the new generative search. So I guess I totally agree with Steve, but I think that relevance is something that we're going to be able to impact when it comes to looking at how AI treats local search.
I've seen something in the distance piece where we've done some testings. If you do a search for a particular, let's just say there's a hot chicken brand that's super fast growing franchise right now, and if you're not in the city that location's in, and you're doing searches for it, and you do a search by name for it, and there's a lot of people that are doing search by name for it, even though it's in a different city, and then there's content on the website that has reviews from customers that are in that city. Oh, I'm in, La Mirada, but I go to Artesia all the time to go to this restaurant. I think those two signals might actually give you a little bit of an edge in terms of the distance piece, because people are searching for that brand when they're not in the city. And there's content on the website that talks about, that has people that are from that city who go to that location. But again, we haven't done enough testing to say that actually works. But I think if, like you said, if there's billboards in a city that's adjacent to the city the location's in, and people are searching by name, for that particular location, then, there could be a little bit of an edge to combat that distance factor that in most cases you can't really do anything about.
Yeah, that's good. Those are good points, but it brings up one last point that I wanted to bring up here, and that is reviews and relevance, right? So one of the things I've been playing around with by looking at the local results is what is coming back and how are they ranking these local results, and specifically with Bing. I've been doing this, and it's really kind of interesting how it's shifted the information, because it used to be based on like we're talking a month ago, by the way, but it used to base the answers on what it saw on major aggregators, so like Yelp, TripAdvisor, etc. And now, when I did the search just I think 2 days ago, it was showing it said, well, this business has this many star ratings and an average review rating or average number of reviews of X. And that's how it was sorting the local results based on the review data. So it's almost a question of if they can index all of this review data, right, which we know Google can, maybe freshness, recency of your reviews and the context of those reviews would impact relevance. So if enough people are coming to, say, IHOP and saying that I love the pancakes in the morning, well, could that impact the ranking of that entity to say, okay, well, in the morning, if somebody is looking for pancakes, we should probably recommend IHOP. Just
It'll
a
be
fun
interesting.
thought.
It'll be interesting to watch and test for sure.
Awesome. So my next question is for you, Lily, and we touched on this a little bit earlier, but what are your thoughts regarding EEAT or EAT moving forward?
Yeah, it's interesting that Google introduced experience as part of the EEAT family in December, right around the time when ChatGPT came out. And now they're doubling down on it, including yesterday with the keynote that they did. They're continuing to really highlight the importance of experience in rankings for many different queries. And this is clearly like, whether or not this was intentionally as a way of like kind of like combating AI content to an extent, it's really a way of elevating real human authentic experience. So EAT, as we knew it before, was really something that Google was leaning on for certain types of content, particularly like health, medical, news, politics, financial, legal, things that really had a significant impact on people's safety and well-being and their money and things like that. But now it's kind of extending a bit into like real human experiences. So even things like reviews of not just products, but now anything. So including travel, like there's a lot of blogs out there that just say top 10 things to do in New York City. Now Google's actually algorithmically going after sites that wrote about top 10 things to do in New York City with authors who have never been to New York City. You can read in the content. It's pretty clear. I mean, not to say the content's not good, but what the content is doing is it's going on Yelp, it's going on TripAdvisor, it's going on Foursquare, whatever, summarizing what it read, and then just kind of rehashing what was already there, right? And that's actually what AI is doing in general. So what can you do differently, right? You can go to New York City and you can try all the restaurants. You can speak to locals and you can say, hey, I've been here. I've spent a lot of time here. This is my experience. And you'll see time and time again with recent core updates, with the recent reviews update, Google is now elevating the rankings of people writing in the first person, people explaining why they have experience, people taking videos and pictures of themselves, people doing like TikTok style videos where it's literally their face doing something. We're working with clients where it's like they're reviewing products, but we're like, hey, do you guys have any evidence that you actually reviewed the products? The ones that say yes, those articles do well. The ones that are like, we can't, this is not scalable for us. This is not profitable for us. We can't test all the products. It's like, well, good luck. That's what Google's looking for. So they're really expanding this across a lot of different categories now. And the good news is that if you are a legitimate content creator and somebody who's enthusiastic about what you're writing about or selling or whatever, you're going to be fine. But if you're taking shortcuts and you're relying on AI or other tools to pretend like you have EEAT or you don't, it's Google's just getting smarter every day with this stuff. So
one of my favorite sites is Healthline. They were the ones that I think got the most benefit from the update that's not called the Medic, but we call it the Medic. And I love some of the badges and some of the ways that they do their content. They have their short summary at the top in most cases, so they get the featured answers, since other sites will syndicate that short summary. They've got the little fact check badge, and it explains why it's fact checked and what kind of authority it has. All little signals like that can, I feel, can make a difference when the user hits the page, knowing whether or not they trust the content or not. And that I think affects more of the search behavior signals in terms of, are we going to be clicked on, and are they going to stay on our website, or are they going to go back to the search results and choose a competing listing, enough so that Google starts to infer that it wasn't a very helpful result. So I think it affects more that search behavior signal than anything else, and that probably weighs in a little bit. So study some of the Healthline articles. My favorite to look at is the keto. Just do a search for Healthline keto and really study the attributes on that page. It's kind of interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, I love that. No, I think that's definitely like almost like a requirement at this point, especially if you're doing health content. Like there's a lot of different kind of elements on the page that you do want to disclose to the user that sites like Healthline are doing very well. One thing I think that's innovating as far as like Google's algorithms is that I really do believe they're looking above and beyond just those elements on the page. I really think they're looking at the content itself and trying to distinguish, is this something that we've already seen across many different sites, or is the doctor that they're claiming expert reviewed the content actually chiming in, actually editing the content for accuracy, right? Because they're able to do this algorithmically and see if a page has net new information that they haven't seen on other pages before.
Love that.
Interesting. So
Yeah, and
let's
backed
talk
up by user
about.
signals probably too. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So we've touched on this a little bit before, but let's talk about Bard and Bing and these AI-powered search engines. And do you think that these new kinds of search engines are going to change the way that people search online? Is it going to change that search behavior? And Ben, you go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'll start. So I think the answer is I hate to say it, but we're SEOs, so it depends. With a caveat, and that is that I believe that way Google is going to take the approach of this is how is search going to be done by somebody who is 10 years old right now? What are they going to do in 20 years? How do they want to search? Or they're trying to train that generation on how they should search, because this is where search is going. And at the same time, they're going to analyze behavior of now us. What are we doing? How are we searching? What kind of prompts are we making? What are we using for in search? We were talking about in the green room, for instance, recipe sites. It's like, I feel bad for recipe sites. I think that entire industry is just going to go away. Because, except for maybe new content generators, but it's a 0-click search. I don't want to go to a website and read about recipes. This is my own search behavior, and read about a recipe and find about the history of, how this recipe came to be and how somebody's grandmother made it and how awesome it was and where it derived from and all of the individual ingredients and the history of those ingredients and how good they are for you. I just want a good answer. That's all I want. I just want the recipe. And I don't want to scroll to the bottom of the page. But that's an example of, I think, how our behavior is going to change. And if we look at, again, our own behavior, it's like, I don't know about you, but I am going to these answer engines and asking a question and getting a response, and I'm fine with that. It does terrify me because I'm in the SEO industry, so I want people to use the blue links, and I want them to use search, and I want them to look at local packs. At the same time, you kind of can't fight it. It's going to happen one way or another.
I keep thinking about the idea that I'm using the chat features for answers, and I'm using web search for options. So I think right now that's probably going to be that transition period where, hey, if you want an answer to something, you're going to use the chat. If you want to look at some options, you're going to use web search.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's been interesting. I've had Bing Chat and ChatGPT and Bard as just like little icons on my phone for a couple months now. So just being able to kind of experience a couple of months of, okay, now I have options for different ways that I can do my searches. I'll say just me personally, I use them all in different ways. I don't think that my Google searches have actually really gone down that much, to be honest, because Google is different than what I've been using Bing Chat for, right? It's just a different experience. And then of course, ChatGPT is a whole other thing. So for me, it's just like another tool in my arsenal. But yeah, I think recipe sites, product review sites, very much like upper funnel informational content, there's a lot of risks there. I think it was very responsible of Google to implement some kind of linking out with its new mock-ups of what it's doing with AI generated answers. But yes, people's behavior is going to change. I don't think it's the end of things like SEO, because what I do think is going to happen is we're just going to see the traffic shift around, right? People still want websites. Maybe you need to think more about video, because there's going to be a lot more video results, but you just have to diversify where that content is going.
I agree. And at the end of the day, even though there's a singular answer, that answer is coming from somewhere, so those citations are going to be super important. And search engines aren't dumb. They know they have to give credit where credit is due, and they need content creators. Otherwise, we get into that garbage in, garbage out scenario.
Yeah,
so,
Google
but
yeah,
exactly. So it'll be interesting to see where it evolves. And I think Lily's point about video and rich content is extremely important. We know that the generation that we have now, they go to TikTok for answers, for God's sakes, But hey, who would have seen that, 5 years ago? Nobody.
Yeah, I agree. I think like I mentioned, Googlebot's not going anywhere. I think we should keep our eyes open for Applebot pretty soon, or whatever they're going to call it, because I know Apple Search is about to make its little surprise entrance. So I would stay alert for that. And I think because they still use links as a signal of hey, this is a trustworthy page. This is a coming from a page that I've trusted my results for years. So I'm going to give credit to that page by crawling it, by continuing to create upper funnel content despite the decrease in traffic that you might get. When other people are writing their articles, yeah, they're probably still going to use AI a little bit in that research now, where they didn't last year, but they're still going to look on the web for resources and sources to cite. So if you're creating amazing content with infographics and checklists and tutorials and tools and calculators and templates and things that are really useful to the person who's writing an article, they're going to reference your page. And when they reference your page via a link, Googlebot and Bingbot and Applebot, or whatever it's going to be called, are still going to crawl and pass PageRank to that, and increase your site's authority in search. So I would not at any point stop doing upper funnel. If you want to start with any upper funnel, use something like Answer the Public and put in your brand name and see the questions that people have around your business, and just start there. That way you've kind of got the momentum, and there's something on the calendar to be writing, and then start getting into some more of the the non-branded search as you go along. But I wouldn't stop doing upper funnel simply because you're not going to get as many clicks. I would do it just because when people are writing their own articles, hopefully they'll reference yours, and you'll get some links out of it.
So we are about to jump into Q&A, and I want to just encourage everybody to submit your questions in the Q&A box. I saw a couple come into the attendee chat, and they might have gotten buried, so I might have to search for those. But be sure to drop those in there. And before we do that, and while you guys are submitting your questions, I'd like to open the floor to the panelists to offer your final thoughts, advice for the audience as they move forward with their SEO strategies.
Lily, you want to go first?
Ben or Lily? Actually, that's a great idea.
I think things like ChatGPT are absolutely amazing, but you really need to understand the limitations of how they work. So I think, like me personally, I've been using it every day, all day. It's definitely speeding up how I do things, but that took a while for me to get there, just kind of understanding how to use it and how not to use it. I think Steve mentioned earlier, like concatenating things in Google Sheets and using ChatGPT plugins is super, super valuable. So I would look into that. But be cautious. Like, just because we haven't seen Google necessarily cracking down on widespread AI content doesn't mean we won't eventually. I'm of the opinion we probably will. So just be careful. But yeah, absolutely think about the things that you do during your day and see if you can speed up efficiencies, because there's plenty of opportunity there.
I would say that in addition to that is you as an organization, you need to build AI kind of into your DNA. And I think that the easiest way that you can do this right now is to start encouraging everybody in your organization to become a prompt master.
Right.
And because that's the key to your efficiency. You can't just ask one question. And sometimes prompts have to be extremely complex to get what you want out of them. And building that prompt ladder, as I like to call it, is key to again, being efficient and using AI as a real great assistant and tool. So that would be the big thing I would recommend to everybody.
I love it. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think I'd mentioned earlier the 4 areas I would focus on every month. Every month, get everyone in the marketing team together and ask, how are we doing on improving our data accuracy, and are there ways that we can leverage AI yet to make sure that our data is complete as much as it can be and accurate across the web? What are some ways that we're improving our location pages and intent pages that are underneath those subpages? And what are some ways we can use AI? Are they ready yet that we can start to improve our pages? What are some ways that we've improved our visibility in local directories, with local bloggers, with local neighboring businesses? And what are some ways that we can use AI to improve that? And the last one, of course, what well, what are we doing in terms of improving the quality, quantity, and velocity and uniqueness and originality of the reviews that we're getting every month, and how can we leverage AI, to improve that? I think if you're focused around all 4 of those areas, and one little fun tip too that you could put on your calendar is every Monday, get up and ask ChatGPT and Bard, what are some prompts that I could use to help improve my local business? As Ben mentioned, finding experts that know these things are great, following them on Twitter, asking them on social media networks, what prompts they recommend using for local business. That way you're reaching out to the experts who are already testing them. And then 2, just asking the tools themselves for prompts and ideas. I think as it evolves and changes and grows, but in a couple of years from now, it's going to be 10,000 times smarter than it is today. So if you keep that cadence going every week, I think you're going to start to see different, newer, better, and more unique answers. And that way you're staying constantly engaged in all 4 areas of local search, so that over time, that pattern of working on those 4 areas should come to fruition and give you the rankings that you deserve.
Awesome.
Maybe we should have a prompt in our...
I tried to buy a prompt domain. They're all taken.
No, I mean, maybe we should do a webinar, but just on prompts.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That would be really interesting. So let's dig into some Q&A. We have received a ton of great questions, and so I want to get to those. And the first one that I wanted to do is this one right here. So this was earlier when we were talking about the actual, if AI generated content can impact your SEO. And they were asking, are you saying that Google has not caught up to be able to filter what is AI and what isn't yet? Is that
So,
kind of...
first of all, they won't ever tell us this directly. Second of all, there's all kinds of different opinions about this. There is technology out there that can do a very good job of it. For example, there's a tool called CopyLeaks. That's the one that I use. That's the best, I think, on the market to be able to detect it. But of course, we're reaching a point where with GPT-4 and what comes next, it's becoming very, very difficult to distinguish AI content from human content. So we don't know whether or not Google is using these types of tools in its algorithms or doing any of this type of detection, but they have a lot of other signals that they look at. So if there's very, very strong correlations between content that's entirely written by ChatGPT and really poor user experience on the site, or not a lot of people linking to it, or not a lot of social media signals, or whatever it is, they can start to put 2 and 2 together and say, listen, like this shows the behavior, or this has a lot of the characteristics of content that's probably AI generated content. So whether or not they're detecting it, they might be doing other things.
Thinking about the ethics of it, if we're even having to think about it, I feel like we're the student in class saying, I wonder if the teacher's going to know I'm cheating, right? And if we have to think about it and we have to wonder and we have to ask, then there's that whole idea of, well, wait a minute, why should I be, if I'm thinking about this, maybe I shouldn't be doing it to begin with. So I think there's that element of it. If you feel like, hey, I'm cheating, then maybe you are, right? So I think use the tools for what they are. But I'm actually on a call right after this with the folks at Past.ai, which is a partner of Originality.ai, because my students, 15% of my students now are submitting articles that are 100% AI. And I know because I've been teaching the same class for like 5 years. So I can tell when something gets submitted that isn't what I normally get from a student. So so they're trying to figure out ways that, that we can and students can, run their content through those tools before we even look at them. So I'm going to be really paying close attention to, the tests that are being run by other businesses. I know CNN did one recently, but watching those to see what happens with it, so we have more business case to tell and suggest to clients not to just automate their content using large language models.
And so another question that we have is, this is an interesting one. Chat GPT versus Bard. Which are you leaning towards? Which one do you think?
Oh, I know Ben has feedback on this one.
That's why I wanted to ask that one.
I like literally have all of the icons, in a group on my phone. And whenever I ask any question to any of them, I always ask it to all of them, because I want to analyze the results and see which ones I like personally. And also figure out how it's deriving the answers. So I would say that currently ChatGPT, I love ChatGPT's answers. I do. But of course it's limited. So if it's something that's more recent, I have to go somewhere else. And currently right now, the somewhere else is going to be Bing, actually, because Bing, even it is based off of ChatGPT, of course, but the data is fresh. However, recently, I have been enjoying Bard more, and I've been finding that it's faster. It makes me a little bit more efficient. I cannot ask it as complex. I can't give it a complex prompt. And that's what bothers me about both Bing and Bard, is that I like the ability to put in something extremely complex and get what I really want out of it. So I think that's the limitation of the two of those. But yeah, I'm going to stop right there because I could probably go on about this for a very long time.
I love Bard because now, and it doesn't, still in experimental mode, but in the next couple weeks, I think these will actually work. I've run prompts like schedule a meeting with myself and Leo on the team and add it to our calendar with the subject line of X. From this Google sheet, extract the primary keywords and organize it into a sitemap. From this Google slide presentation, right? Just being able to integrate the different products and use AI to help do things is going to be super exciting. And I don't know, I can do that with ChatGPT or with Bing. Like maybe if you're on Bing and you're on the Microsoft framework.
When that functionality comes out, absolutely.
It's almost there. That's why I'm excited about it. That's why I'm playing with Bard more than anything.
So we've got another question here, and they're asking, when adding video to your site, which do you recommend? Using Vimeo, YouTube, or placed directly in site files? Does one have an advantage over the other?
Oh, load time would suck if you just put it on your own. Honestly, I'm partial to. I was using Wistia for quite a while. It's getting a little expensive now with all the videos that we have. So I think we're going to move back to YouTube for all of our video content. And it's funny how Google was making such a big deal about page experience for so long. And their biggest issue was that their product, YouTube, was one of the problems that we had with loading video. And then we figured out ways around it. And now we can still get really high core Web Vital score with YouTube. With a little bit of research, you could probably do the same thing. So I'm sticking to YouTube, even though I'm not a huge fan of them showing competitor videos at the end of our video. But yeah, of course, you've got Vimeo and Wistia as alternatives. But for me, I've seen the best results from a page performance standpoint by tweaking some of the embed code for YouTube.
Alrighty, we've got a little bit more time, so I think I can get to one or two more. And
yeah, I gotta go at 11.
Okay. Alrighty, well then I'll do one last quick one, and then that'll be the end. Let me see. Oh, I just had it. It was about, I wanted to make sure I hit this one. Yes, as far as garbage in and garbage out, what about preset biases?
Lily.
I mean, it's a huge concern, right? Like a lot of AI ethicists are very, very concerned about this. What was ChatGPT trained on? What is Google trained on? I think that's a massive concern and one that society needs to think a lot about. I think Google's doing a good job of showing that it's approaching AI as ethically as possible, I think. We'll see what that actually looks like with the answers that these tools generate. But I agree that this is a really, really big concern. And personally, I don't know how to get around that, but just understanding the tools are trained on certain data that might contain biases.
Yeah, it could be one of those things that works itself out over time.
Yeah. Or it gets worse.
Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. That's all the time that we have right now for Q&A. And it's honestly all the time that we have for this discussion. And so thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you, Ben, Steve, and Lily for joining us. This was a great conversation, and I'm really happy that we were able to have this directly after Google I/O so we can get some of the takeaways from that as well.
Right.
So we're going to wrap things up. Thank you everybody here for tuning in and watching. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something along the lines of AI and how it's going to impact your SEO. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us at events@birdeye.com or connect to any of our great speakers on LinkedIn. I think that should be their profiles should be linked to their bios. Will have a link to their LinkedIn. There it goes. But yeah, so thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.